graduated, elevated. Now it's my time to shine. Yeah, let's go. Major moves, power moves. Take it to the top one time, non-stop.
I believe it's quite complex, and I understand in terms of what you're saying to say that the problem is actually bigger than what it is. And when you say we need leaders, what are the qualities that one needs to be a leader? Because, like you said, some people are incompetent, and it happens everywhere globally. There are people in positions that shouldn't be in those positions, but sometimes you need a bit of chaos for things to work. You need an incompetent person in a position to make the business work or the country to work, because when they're incompetent and they're making the errors, then you highlight the issues and people can see. And then now we work on interventions to fix it. So going back to your research, I know you've got the SET model in terms of social exchange theory. Now, looking at, the sector that you're focusing on and the managers, they have to build that relationship, taking away the high unemployment levels and the glass ceilings and the lack of opportunities. What did you identify that was so interesting about these relationships that you can't wait to discuss from your interviews?
Yeah, look, I interviewed heads of department, and I interviewed TVET lecturers, leaders and lecturers. And I think for me, for leaders, you need competence. Like, I hear you when it comes to the issues of sometimes the incompetent guys need to be there so that we can deal with them. But, when you are dealing with quite a lot of money, that money goes to wastage. So, I don't think we have. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like we're in an emerging economy. We can't afford wastage, So we need competent leaders. We need leaders that have got the technical know-how. And the ability to respond to the ever-changing global situation. The where we are right now as a global society is, as you know, the VUCA world, the Barney world, things are just volatile. And you need somebody that's going to be quite responsive from a technical element. There's also got to be professional occupational competence. We need people that are going to be responsive and be able to navigate us through that.
I hear you.
Yeah.
But looking at South Africa, you're part of the BRIC nations. Now, you've been a part of that for well over a decade now, and I learnt about it, I believe, during my master's or undergrad. So if you look at that, the country has not taken the opportunity that it needed to at that time. And you've got Brazil, obviously now you're expanding in terms of that. But if you look at situations like xenophobia, I wouldn't necessarily bring my company there, even though the labor costs are low, right?
Yeah.
Because the nation itself believes we fight and we burn down in order for us to move forward or to be heard. So when you're going back to leaders and you're going back to the lecturers, that culture, I believe, is the problem, because looking at it from an external perspective, would I take my company there? Would I think my people are safe? Because you don't know who's going to burn it down. And also, if I was a colleague, right, and I'm coming into work and you're my line manager, I don't know if you were protesting last night and burning down the houses near my street, whether I'm Afrikaans, English, Chinese, or Indian, and I've come in with my business. So I'm in fear. I don't know how to speak to you and how to manage you. So I have that fear. So going back to the social exchange, me from external, also I'm thinking, right, you're saying we need sponsors. I'm in fear because on my way in, let's say if I live in KwaZulu-Natal, there's always there is that element of violence, right? So I'm in fear. I'm not going to necessarily think, right, let me say how I truly feel. You're not
Yeah,
performing at the level that you should be. Because I don't know if you burned down my house. And that's me exaggerating, right?
yeah,
But I don't know if you could be the person that, was marching late last night with the fire, the torches. I genuinely don't know. So looking at it from that perspective, which may be exaggerated, and I'm just making this up, as a person, I would be in fear, and I don't think I would manage people properly because there will
yeah,
always be that element of I'm in fear of violence and I have children and a husband or a wife. I don't know
yeah.
what your thoughts are, but this is just obviously your opinion.
I hear you. Look, I'm not undermining elements like xenophobia and so on. They are there, but I think as well how the media has portrayed things, just like how they portrayed the whole Afrikaner issue lately about, Afrikaners being hurt in South Africa and so on. There's quite a misconstrued idea about the severity of xenophobia in South Africa. A lot of South Africans are okay. The problem is the high levels of unemployment and inequality and identity issues as well. So personally, once you set foot in South Africa, of course, there are spaces that are quite hard and contested and so on, but it's a place that has a lot of potential. It's a place that has a lot to work on. But for a lot of us regular folk, people are people, you know. The big issue here is we've got a big pie that only few people are owning. And until we go down to why are all these people owning this big pie and just a few people owning crumbs, which is what the big issue is in our economy, and it's something that has been unearthed as we've been dealing with this debate between the US and South Africa and Afrikaners and so on. That has come out, and I'm glad a lot of Americans who have really been so kind enough to say, guys, we understand what's going on in your country. There's only a few of you that are actually benefiting till today in terms of the economy of the country. And as a result of that, in economics, we know about supply and demand and what generally happens when fewer people are benefiting from what seems to be something that should be benefiting everybody. Of course, there will be fights. And unfortunately, that fight will end up being who's the easiest person to get to. And it's yourself. It's somebody that looks like you, because the other people are living in high walls somewhere that you cannot access. When you live in a township and the people that own the economy are further up the road with high security, the conflict is going to be among you, and that is what happens. It's what I have seen. It may not necessarily be true, but that's just basically what happens. There's that thing of saying, ah, it's these guys, so they're the ones taking our jobs, and so on. And they're easily accessible. They're just around the corner. But you can't get to those high walls in Sandton. You can't get to those high walls in Bishopshaven in Cape Town. So what happens? You turn to somebody that's the closest to you and you fight with them.
Yeah, thank you very much for your response. The next question that I have is, how does your research provide an original contribution to knowledge?
Well, I'm contributing a sponsorship framework for the
Are
career
you sure?
development for the
I'm
career
joking.
development of TVET lecturers in South Africa. As you know, that whole thing of unique contribution is something that, it's also debated on to like say, how sure are you that this is so unique? But yeah, so what I'm contributing is a sponsorship framework for the career development of South African TVET lecturers, just to help, TVET leaders and HR practitioners to say, how do we provide some sort of support? How do we become the voice for these guys? and identify high capacity lecturers. I think if anybody, has ever been somebody's boss or manager, when you lose a highly competent person, you lose quite a lot, you know. So my logic is there are some people that are not worth losing. And when you give them a voice, or you become their voice or their advocate, chances of them leaving are very low. And even when they leave, they don't forget you. But some people, as soon as they leave, they're like, "Phew, a sigh of relief. I'm getting away from that nonsensical organization." So if we can provide support, advocacy, sponsorship, opportunities for career growth, then somebody will kind of punt your name to say, look, I used to work at this organization. How about we kind of give them this and that? So there is a reciprocal element to this whole thing. There I go again. So yeah, um, what I'm contributing is a sponsorship framework for the career development of TVET lecturers. Yeah.
No, thank you so much for that response. I guess the next question is, comparing your research to other people's, how does yours stand out in terms of differentiation?
I think a lot of the other research that I've seen in the sector ends up at the mentorship level.
Of
So
course.
it's role models, it's coaches, it's mentors, and then finally sponsors. So in most cases, coaching has been identified as a great career tool for, helping lecturers. Mentorship has been identified as a great career tool for helping, employees. But in the TVET sector, the idea of career sponsorship has not really been looked at, firstly because it's not something a lot of people talk about, career sponsorship. It's not well known as a topic. But so that's what really stands out, and the career framework itself. By the way, the career framework also involves AI, which is something fascinating. I also have a fascination for AI tools and so on. So the idea is incorporating elements of AI, whether it is in matching the sponsor to the protege, just plugging in the latest tools available, whether it is large language models, AI, using AI to spawn to match the two, to try and make the system a bit easier to work with. So that's also something that's unique, that stands out there, because a lot of the mentorship programs are more manual. Humans do everything. But we now are in the fourth industrial revolution, some say fifth. So incorporating some AI in there and making it like a part of the framework is what kind of makes my framework a bit unique as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And to that point, you may not like the man, but Elon Musk has said we need more governance when it comes to AI. What are your thoughts with that?
100%. Like, I've been following the debates on AI and so on. A lot of the guys that started it out are very concerned about how it's boundaryless, you know. There are no boundaries at the moment. In other words, anything goes. And until there are such things as ethics and governance, we are in trouble, because you've basically unleashed something that has the potential to take over anything in any space. And as a result of that, there is that worry about how far can this thing go. I mean, you know, 10 years ago, this thing wasn't even there. And all of a sudden now, boom, it's here and it's revolutionizing everything. In universities right now, there are huge debates about it, and I'm sure you've seen them. It's crazy. There's a lot of talks about how far does this thing go? Can you use it? Should you not use it? I've heard a lot of researchers and and professors talking about the use and abuse of it, or and there is that tiff right now in all sectors, including in computer science, where a lot of the guys are now losing their jobs to AI. The same people that were programming these things are now saying, I'm being laid off. Like, okay, dude, you're the one that created this thing. It's you guys that were programming these things. And all of a sudden now they are firing you or getting you fired, you know? So there's a lot that goes into this thing with AI. And I think we have a lot of thinking to do. Are we going to limit it? Or are we just going to let it be? I was watching this other video where they were talking about how now two large language models can talk to each other without human intervention. And that's how far AI has gone, to a point where these robots, these machines can talk to each other without human intervention. So what else can they come up with? I doubt if hallucinations are going to be a forever thing. If these things are not going to hallucinate forever, if they do, that might be very problematic, because hallucinating with a lot of power can be destructive. So those are things that I think we really need to think about when it comes to global governance issues. Data management as well, because there's a lot of data floating around, and if these machines are not managed well, they can cause a lot of harm.
So a couple of points, and this is going to be a bad joke, but hopefully you get it. You said they've come up with these AI tools and they're losing their jobs. Isn't that bad leadership? Lack of forward thinking.
I think it's
That's a
like
good
that whole
example.
theory of the mad scientist. When I was growing up, there was always this thing of the mad scientist going in there and just hoping for the best. I'm just gonna add this to that and see what happens afterwards. So I think we are there. We are at that space where we're like, okay, we've created this thing and we are excited, but now looking at what it's capable of, we are now scared. So there's a lot of fear around something that was created by us, because now the created is kind of saying, look, dude, I'm here to change the world, and like it or not, I'm here to stay. I've made life easy for everyone, but now I've taken a lot of what used to be part of human identity, I guess, and I've made it null and void. I mean, if all you've done was code, and that's what gave you life, and now this machine does better coding than you, what else are you? What else can you do? You know? So yeah, there's been that whole talk now about, okay, so bad leadership. I don't know, I mean, I was listening to these guys talking about moving away from the language of saying artificial intelligence to the word super intelligence. So there is now that transition of language to say these things are now no longer artificially intelligent, they're now super intelligent. I don't know how true that is, but looking at where the world is right now, we have a lot of thinking to do, and a lot of leadership is needed in order to bring proper governance systems and ethics to the table to say, how do we curb this? How do we limit this thing's power? Is it possible to do that? I'm not sure.